Hi folks, just when it seems that COVID has finally ended, the world now is facing yet another horrifying event with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I've already spoken in details about that in my previous video, so today we're just focusing on stocks. But let me just say that Canadian and US stock market and the economy overall wouldn't suffer much from the Russian aggression, because despite being the biggest country in the world, Russia represents less than 2% of world's GDP, and just to put things into perspective here, one state of Texas has higher GDP than the whole Russia. So the Russian economy is actually quite insignificant compared to the US. For the long-term perspective, this whole war Putin started will most likely be the last nail in the coffin for his dictatorship regime, which means the world will finally have a chance of seeing a new and democratic Russia, hopefully at some point in this decade, which will only drive the markets up and improve the economy and business environment for everybody. But that's a very long-term hope. In regards to what we have all seen with stocks recently, it's not so much the Ukraine conflict, but more the inflation and rising interest rates affecting the market, which was predicted a long time ago by many analysts, investors, bloggers, literally everybody. Also, I will shortly mention the rally with Canadian oil stocks, as I have a little warning to add for my fellow Canadians. But that's closer to the end of the video. Anyways, enough of all that. Let's finally talk about 5 best companies that, in my opinion, have extremely high chances of rising way higher from their current levels and have quite impressive revenues that keep on increasing with each year. And to better support my view, I will give you a short brief on each company to explain why their influence and market share will most likely only keep on increasing in following years. Tech, banking, payments, oil and gas, you've got it all in one video. Let's start with my biggest bet for 2022, which isn't only transforming the world of laptops and gaming right now, but also changing the whole PC industry. In my first stock video, I've already given a few facts about AMD and what they're up to. To be short, it's the biggest CPU producer in the world right now. And in the last 3 years, they pushed Intel far away quite hard and took over the leadership in the PC components market by producing processors that aren't only cheaper compared to Intel counterparts, but also more powerful. I like that. Plus, Intel cannot produce competitive graphic cards, but AMD can. And while some can rightfully say that they are already trading at a high price that represents their recent achievements, there are a few reasons why I'm still bullish on AMD and think that they will only continue to grow. Anyways, think of laptops first. Before, to get a decent and powerful laptop that can perform well under both regular work tasks and gaming, you needed to buy a powerful gaming laptop with discrete graphic card, meaning that there's a CPU and a GPU in your machine, which usually costs significantly more than a regular work machine and is also much heavier, not to mention shorter battery life. With the recent Ryzen 6000 series processors, AMD solved that problem for good with their powerful integrated graphic cards called iGPU, which finally made it possible to have a very powerful hardware in a very thin laptops. Now, even a lightweight laptop in a 1 kg body can be a powerhouse for both gaming and working, as the integrated graphic card AMD made became so powerful that it can run all modern games with a decent frame rate. So you can play your games, do your video editing, regular office work, entertainment and much more, all on a lightweight laptop that also has crazy battery life, up to 24 hours and affordable price tag. That was purely impossible just a few years ago, but 2022 will change the laptops market for good. But if you are a hardcore gamer, the next stock will be of more interest to you. And we will talk about that in a minute. To finalize, AMD stock fell quite significantly last month and now is trading about 20% lower compared to the first week of February when it was at $105 a share. I suspect it will recover to $130 mark soon, and in the long term, I expect to see it at least $150. Which is a very reasonable price target. Just a short note here, I've been bullish on AMD for a very long time, like for 10 years at least, because I remember building my first desktop PC back in 2012 based on an AMD FX 8350 processor. It was a bulldozer series, they called them. They had some heating issues, but back then I already knew that the Intel was a dead cat, and apparently I was correct. Now, let's talk about one more tech stock and then we will shift to a different sector, that I promise. When someone mentions AMD, Nvidia is usually the one to come up next. and this video ain't an exception. Nvidia is an obvious leader in the graphics card industry, and now they're also pushing their way into AI, self-driving vehicles, design, visualization, the cloud, and much more, diversifying their business as much as they could. I know for a fact that a few famous car manufacturers have already become their partners, and more will sign up in the future. Of course, their main field and concentration is always gaming and entertainment, and even though AMD also creates great graphic cards, Nvidia remains the leader in that field. And that probably won't change anytime in the near future. Their stock also fell quite significantly last month, and now about 20% down from their highs in the first week of February, and even more compared to their November ATH prices, when it reached a record $330 per share. Honestly, I don't expect them to go that high anytime soon again, but I do expect them to show at least 20 to 25% rebound back to $280 to $300 short term, which is, in my opinion, a very reasonable price target for a company that big. And looking at their financials, it is no secret that the company does extremely well, and by just taking a look at their revenue on a year-to-year basis, you realize that it's a very solid investment. It's also important not to disregard the information technology sector, and I particularly like financial and credit card services. When it comes to that, I see two very interesting picks that are also always mentioned together, just like Nvidia and AMD. Of course, I'm talking about Visa and MasterCard. They both dropped about 15% last month, and in my experience, their gains and losses usually correlated. If Visa drops 2%, MasterCard does the same. If MasterCard gains 4%, so does Visa, and vice versa. You can choose the one you prefer the most and you wouldn't miss in any case, though I personally like Visa better because of their stronger financial report and lower stock price, allowing me to buy and hold more shares in my account. Also, Visa has a slightly higher dividend yield, but they're both pretty low in that regard because it's not the best dividend stocks. Both companies are the absolute leaders in their field, and their influence will only grow in the following years. Amex is also a great stock to have, but I do prefer Visa and MasterCard because they have much higher international influence. When it comes to oil and gas, they all had a pretty outstanding week, partially thanks to Russia's war with Ukraine, which led to the highest oil prices since 2008. However, as someone who bought Vermilion at $4 a share and Suncor Energy at $15 a share prices, I really don't think now is the best time to jump on Canadian oil stocks unless you're looking for a great dividend stock, which is another story. But if you expect any gains, I suggest getting the stocks that I mentioned earlier in this video. Think for yourself. The prices for natural resource companies are essentially 30% up in just a few weeks, and it's never a good idea to jump into anything at an ATH point. Enbridge still looks like a great deal for the money while being the most interesting stock for dividend investors with its generous 6% yield, but again, unless you're a dividend investor, I wouldn't consider it just yet. Now, I've selected some amazing and safe Canadian stocks for dividend investing, so please subscribe and stay updated if you want to see that video soon, because this video is coming next on my channel, and I'm sure that many people will find it quite helpful. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you next week.